Hey guys, Levi here. Today we will take a look at the most versatile mage weapon in Albion Online. If you are new to the game and you want to start off as a mage, or if you have been playing one of the other roles and finally want to embrace the power of magic, this video will tell you everything you need to know about your single best option. When you think of mages in Albion Online, you quickly think about Fire, Frost and Cursed, which each have 7 different weapons. You could even throw in some of the arcane weapons in there if you see that as some sort of dark magic. All in all, you're quickly looking at over 20 different options. Quite overwhelming, I would say. So which weapon do you start off with as a new mage in this game? When it comes to mage weapons in Albion Online, the most versatile one by far is the one-handed frost staff. And this wasn't always the case for this weapon. It actually got changed at some point and has been viable across many different contents ever since. And I think versatility is one of the best things you can have on a weapon in Albion Online when you are just starting out. Because the more you can use a certain weapon, the more advantages you will create for yourself. First of all, by using a weapon more often, you will level it to higher levels much quicker, because whatever fame you get goes to the gear you have equipped, meaning the more you use a certain weapon, the quicker you will level it up. And higher levels make for a lot more item power, meaning that specific piece of gear becomes that much stronger. The second advantage is that by leveling a certain weapon, you also unlock new abilities for that weapon tree. Some of these abilities can be crucial to the role you play, so the sooner you have these abilities unlocked, the more options you will have in your gameplay. As for the third advantage, since there is a ton of different content in Albion Online and you might jump from one activity to another, you will be able to use this weapon in many of the different contents. Where normally you often want to swap your weapon and build to fit the content you're about to do, the one-handed frost staff is in a unique spot where it can jump in on almost anything. There aren't many weapons in this game that have such a privilege, but this mage weapon does. And if you are thinking of becoming a mage in Albion Online, I don't think any of the other mage weapons come close to it in terms of versatility. This doesn't mean that the other mage weapons aren't as good, but they often only excel in one or a few activities and fall short on everything else. Whereas the one-handed frost is welcome to any party and is even great when farming solo. And did I already mention this weapon is dirty cheap? Because it doesn't get cheaper than this. The one-handed frost staff is a regular weapon, so it doesn't need any special materials to be crafted, unlike the artifact weapons which tend to be very expensive. So you can count on this weapon to remain cheap at all times. Now there is one final advantage that this weapon has, and to be more precise, it's something that the frost weapons have in common, which is that you typically play the same build with them. Where on many other weapons it's recommended you swap your armor pieces based on whether you are playing solo or in a group, and also based on the type of activity you do, the frost weapons have a go-to build that works for many of the different contents. And just like your weapon, the more you use a certain armor piece, the more you will level it up as well, meaning you will level your armors just as quick as your one-handed frost staff, making for very high specializations across the board when playing this weapon. If all the advantages of the one-handed frost staff didn't convince you yet, let me tell you about the strengths of it. It really comes down to 3 different things: AoE damage, crowd control, and mobility. Starting with AoE damage, your third Q ability is your primary damage dealer, an ability that you will be spamming like crazy whenever playing the frost weapons. Although the other abilities in your build have damage to them as well, this is your main damage dealer. You do need level 70 mastery to unlock this ability, so you won't be able to use it straight away. Given how easy it is to get fame nowadays, this shouldn't take you more than a few days. I will tell you how you can quickly get to level 70 mastery at the end of this video. Until you reach level 70 in Frost Mage, simply use one of the other Q abilities. I would go with the second Q as it is an AoE, just like the third Q. When it comes to the second strength of this weapon, crowd control, you have 2 abilities, your W and your E. Your E is the reason we take the one-handed frost staff over any other mage weapon, because it's the ultimate ability that's unique to this specific weapon. In this case, you have Freezing Wind for your ultimate, which is a rather big AoE that deals damage to all targets hit and gradually freezes enemies inside of it. This effect first slows your enemies down and eventually roots them in place. The kicker of this ability is that it has a very low cooldown. With only 15 seconds between the time you can use it again, this ability makes for a huge crowd control addition to any type of activity. Your second crowd control is in your W, which happens to be a mobility at the same time. When you use Frost Nova, you will teleport to your targeted position while stunning everyone around your starting position and dealing damage to them, which makes this ability extremely powerful, but also that much more important to use wisely since it makes for two different effects. Your second mobility is the blink on your boots, which is yet another teleport. That gives you 2 teleports in total, which each have 20 seconds cooldown, which makes for quite the mobility on a relatively low cooldown, which is yet another strength of this weapon. This is the go-to build for any of the Frost weapons, so also for the one-handed Frost Staff. You have the Royal Cowl, Scholar Robe and Cleric Sandals for your armor pieces, the Morgana Cape as your cape, and Resistance Potions and Pork Omelette as your consumables. Since the one-handed Frost Staff can wield an offhand, you also want to take the Tome of Spells for faster casting. As for why that's important, well, your Q, which is your primary damage dealer, does have a cast time to it. So the faster you cast it, the more successful you will be and the more damage you will do. And since spamming an ability will cost you a lot of energy, your build covers that through both your helmet and your armor. So what this build does is support the needs of the one-handed Frost Staff. You've got 2 abilities that help you sustain your energy and 4 sources that help you cast faster. As for your passives, you want to go with the third one on your weapon, as it will help you cast even faster. On your armors, multiple options are viable and it's up to personal preference. You can go cast speed on all 3, which is very popular, damage on all 3, or do a mix of both cast speed and damage. Now, if you are a new player, the go-to build might not be as affordable. Here are some things you can swap around to make it much cheaper. You can swap your Royal Cowl for the Scholar Cowl, which is a budget version that will also help you with sustaining your energy. You can also go with a regular cape instead of a Morgana cape, which will drastically cut back the price of your loadout. By swapping out these 2 items alone, you still have a very effective Frost Mage build that's now also very affordable. If you are a new player and you want to level this weapon, I recommend you do it with the budget build in the more risky areas of the game until you have your economy going. Now you know everything about the build for the one-handed Frost Staff, but what are some things you have to take into account when playing this build? The most important thing by far is positioning. The build you play is very squishy as it uses cloth armors, and in PvP, enemies will go out of the way to target you. And since the only defense you have is the Resistance Potion, if you decide to take it that is, you are left without defenses for a very long 2 minutes shortly after using it. Which is why positioning yourself tactically is your #1 defense and priority when playing this build. Now you do have a great amount of mobility in the form of 2 blinks, of which one will even stun everyone around you. But since you are squishy and have no defenses, using these 2 blinks wisely becomes that much more important. Which is why more often than not you want to use your mobility defensively. There is nothing wrong with using your mobility offensively, especially if you want to catch someone or chase someone down, but do realize that the moment you've used your mobility, you will die if someone decides to hard focus you. You are very squishy and you don't have any defenses, so the moment you use your mobility, you are basically up for the grabs. Positioning is the #1 thing that will separate good Frost Mages from the bad ones, and how you use your mobility and crowd control is a very close second. In conclusion, the one-handed Frost Staff is a very versatile weapon that can be used in many of the different contents. With a go-to build for many of these activities, not only do you level your weapon very quickly, but also your armors. With great AoE damage, crowd control and mobility, you are also very welcome to any activity within the game. So if you want to play a mage in Albion Online, I highly recommend the one-handed Frost Staff. What I also recommend is that you do my 0 to Hero challenge with this Frost Mage build. In just 3 days I made 9 million silver, and I also reached level 72 on my masteries on a brand new character. So if you want to play the most versatile mage weapon in the game and unlock the primary damage dealing ability very quickly, you can do that by following my Zero to Hero challenge.